according to the records, orbits the sun every 3,600 years. It's in our solar system, and because it goes so far out, it gets very cold. Well, what protected them was their atmosphere, and the atmosphere is just like ours. If you go outside of our atmosphere, George, it's very cold. So even though we're close to the sun, it's still very cold out there. In order to salvage they tried everything according to the records, and the only planet in the solar system that had gold was Earth. They determined that by a survey. I don't know how they did that, but their story is that they had to come here to get gold and send the gold back to Nibiru, which was their home planet, and powder it into flakes and throw it up into the atmosphere, and it closes up the hole, which is an interesting concept for us to put in the back of our hat in case we ever really lose our atmosphere. Gold apparently reflects. Our space our astronauts have gold shields on their faces.
That's right. That's right.
Anyway, so the story is that they needed gold. We were the only planet that had it, and so they sent a mining expedition here to take our gold and ship it back to their planet to save their atmosphere and save their homeland.
And I guess they had the kind of technology to know we had the gold, right?
That's right. I mean, how they did that, I can't tell you. I couldn't even speculate on that. But they were able to run a survey of all the planets that were in the same solar system that they were. By the way, they were a rogue planet, according to the story of Enuma Elish, which they recorded for us. Their planet was captured by Neptune's gravitational pull. It was floating out in space.
And it's still out there somewhere, right?
Well, it's back in. It was once it got into our solar system, it came down and ran around the sun and went back out. And it's been doing that every 3,600 years.
Exactly. And I can't wait to get into some of the artifacts and evidence that you talk about in your work, too. But
right.
But so they come here to look for gold. And originally, I assume they're doing it themselves, right? Or did they already have a plan?
Absolutely. No, they were doing it for a long time and apparently very good at it, and got into Africa. They got into the African gold vein, which I think is quite deep. Might be as much as...
And again, they probably had the technology to know exactly where it was.
Exactly. And they didn't survey the whole planet. They would have found it elsewhere, but they found it from... Well, they landed, I think, in the records say, in the Persian Gulf, which is where their spaceship came down, and from there they went on shore, which became... Sumar, or Mesopotamia, that today is Iraq. Is what we call.
Isn't that incredible? Yeah.
Yeah, and most of these treasures that we've found, George, have been in the sands of Iraq. In these buried libraries of these rich kings many thousands of years ago.
Oh yeah, that's right. It was a cradle. You know how they talk about the cradle of civilization? Well, this is where, based on your theory and Sitchin's, this is where the genetic alterating occurred.
That's right. So, well, actually, no. The first cloning operation happened in Africa.
Okay.
Southeast Africa, near the gold mines, because their idea was that they got to a point where they needed a primitive worker to do the mining, because their guys were getting a little tired of doing it. And they took, one of the genetic engineers took the local Homo erectus and experimented and finally produced Homo sapiens, and they called him Adam.
And Homo erectus, I guess, they were not smart enough or controllable enough to do what they needed to do with the gold, right?
You couldn't talk to him. You couldn't communicate with him. That was the problem. They needed some like Homo erectus, but community you could do what you wanted to do. Tell them what to do, and they'd do it.
And when they then started to genetically alter Homo erectus, is that how we found Adam? He was the first?
He was the first, and there's a book that Sitchin wrote called The Lost Book of Enki.
Yes.
Terrific book. He translated And
I think that's his last book, right?
No, he's written several books since.
Did he do another one? Okay.
Yeah, but this was what to me was his most outstanding because it's direct translations of tablets that he found. And this story is the story of how they came here and a lot of the information. But the chapter 6, or tablet number 6, which it is, tablet 6 tells the story of all the mistakes they made before they finally got at him. As they were trying various combinations of cloning that didn't work.
That must have been like the island of Dr. Moreau with some of their mistakes.
Yeah, mistakes. I don't know.
4-armed people and 3 heads and all kinds of things.
All that. But, one of the interesting things that happened just recently, as I reread it, the thing that finally worked, they were mixing up they took the egg from the female Homo erectus and they implanted their DNA, the Anunnaki's DNA, into the egg and then planted that egg into the female Anunnaki birth mothers.
Oh, okay. All right.
So it's kind of like intro.
Did they still go through a 9-month gestation period?
Right. But It wasn't working until they mixed it. They were always mixing it in crystal containers. They mixed it in a clay pot. Now get this. And I guess some of the clay got mixed in with the mixture, and that worked. And that's where this story about we came from the earth.
From dust to dust.
Dust to dust, exactly, George.
Amazing.
And now, today, I've read several reports of people who are doing these intra transplanting, and they're using dirt. They're using, and it's working. It's working better. Now, I don't know why, but I don't know if they found out from these ancient tablets that was what is a good thing to do. But
how many of us did they make, Marshall? Hundreds? Thousands?
Thousands. And then, one of the interesting things, George, is that the clones can't reproduce. In other words, they made a female for Adam, but they couldn't mate because they were genetically engineered. So they had to go through another operation to make Eve fertile so that Adam could have children with her. And in the Bible, the story of Adam's rib, I think, is very parallel to this story. Yeah. It's where woman came from, but where woman who was fertile came.
Maybe they took cells from his rib or something.
They probably took marrow. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's go into details, and I'm just looking for the facts, and as much as I can gather that supports the book. I took 12 different things here on Earth that I said would help support this. If I
you don't think, though, that the Anunnaki, that their existence is to travel to planetary systems and basically genetically alter what's there and try to create people?
George, they had a problem with that. They had something like a prime directive in that they weren't allowed to alter species. And the way they got around it was they said, we're not going to create a new species. It's already here. We're just going to put our mark on it. In other words, they took the Homo erectus and they altered it and produced us. It was not it was a bicameral production, but they had to deal with this, not fooling around, with making new species.
When we come back, Marshall, tell us what happened to the Anunnaki. They simply disappeared, or are they still here? And then later on, we will talk about the Giza pyramids, the Nazca lines in Peru, on Coast to Coast AM. Well, sign up for the free Coast Zone newsletter. Just go to coasttocoastam.com, click the link there that you'll see on the homepage, fill out the information, and voila, you'll start getting the Coast Zone newsletter delivered to your computer. It's an email newsletter, and you'll love it. Great stories about Coast to Coast, information about upcoming shows, and if you missed a show or two, you'll have past information as well. And sometime next week, those of you who are getting the Coast Zone newsletter, the free newsletter, and it will always be free, you're going to get a peek, a glimpse of the brand new coasttocoastam.com website. So make sure you subscribe to the Coast Zone newsletter. We're with Marshall Klarfeld, his book, Adam the Missing Link. Marshall, how long did they stay here on the planet? And then where did they go? Why did they leave?
Well, that's a